gon' tune in cause it's showtime. Go ahead and call the gang up for the one time. Rap food rhymes, got them on the line. And my life's still great, I'm doing just fine. Hands up.
The last piece of this episode, we're going to go into our video game realm. The first thing I want to touch into is that we got some GTA 6 news. So the last time we talked about GTA 6, it was announced that the game was going to come out in 2026. They had pushed back the release date. We got some recent news that the release date for GTA 6 is going to be fall 2025. So get y'all wallets ready.
I'm taking off work. I make this joke. I made this joke before, but I gotta take off work just to beat the single player and then jump into the multiplayer and get a head start. Like, I got to, bro. I'm treating this like a vacation.
I'm ready to see the gameplay trailers, like when IGN and GameSpot and everybody gets a hold of the game. I'm ready to see what the gameplay is looking like. We got that little story trailer a while ago. They got leaked. But I'm ready to see what the gameplay looks like. I'm ready to see like how they change, like what mechanics they change, like what's different, like what's as far as like playability and like how we switch between characters and then the map and stuff. What is all of that going to look like?
Because if they're saying fall 2025, that could be like the beginning of September or as late as the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at like a year and 3 months at minimum from now.
Well, the good thing,
by the end of this year, we're getting another trailer. I was going to agree.
I was about to say the good thing about it is that we're stepping into the summer, and as you guys know, when we get towards the end of the summer, that August, September area, everybody's doing showcases. Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, Ubisoft, everybody's doing showcases. So hopefully one of those showcases shows a little bit more for GTA 6.
Yeah. I'm seeing that coming. For the Elder Scrolls fans, we might start getting more news about Elder Scrolls 6. But GTA finna take over, bro. Like, they honestly could be quiet. They could drop one little nice trailer here and then wait till like the spring of 2025 to when they start doing like them little interviews where the developers start sitting down going in depth what they doing. They could stay quiet. Just one trailer for this year and say wait for it.
Yeah, because of all of the leaks and everything that's been surrounding GTA 6, they don't have to do much.
10 years, bro.
They don't have to do much, but I think they do need to give us some insight into the gameplay. If they show anything, I hope it's some insight into the gameplay. I hope they give a demo or something to IGN, GameSpot, somebody, so they can get their hands on it and we can actually see what this game is supposed to look like. If they do anything, I would like it to be that.
We need like a single player gameplay trailer this year. Next year, either they need to go more in depth with the single player, then dip into multiplayer, or do like a multiplayer trailer, then have the developers talk more about single player, and then go into multiplayer at the end of it.
Yeah.
Just so that people can be hyped up for the single player, not immediately jump into multiplayer.
That's true. Gameplay is what I want to see. Because the anticipation is there. The hype is there. It's GTA. And with everything, all of the drama and everything that's been leading up to this point, the hype is there.
And we seen what y'all can do.
We
know what y'all can do.
We don't need too much. We don't need too much. I just want to see some gameplay. That's all I want. I'm
looking forward to 50 100 player lobbies in multiplayer. I gotta hear it. I gotta see. I'm getting better.
They better get them servers together. I mean, let's not have a Helldivers 2 situation. Get them servers together.
Man, they got, compared to everybody else, the money they made off of GTA 5, they'd have made like 10 times their budget. GTA 5 went green about 10 times, more than that with the online. Like, they got the money to make this big. If they have no excuses. No excuses. I don't want to hear nothing about servers being overloaded. I don't want to hear none of that.
We gonna see. We gonna see. It all goes into like the risk management thing. Like, we plan. They gonna plan for a certain amount, but it just might.
Y'all need to plan for this to be the biggest game of the year.
It just might. We might just exceed expectations.
Look, at least meet them. Even if y'all meet him, I'm already impressed.
We might just exceed their expectations, but we gonna see though. We gonna see the game showcases are coming up pretty soon. We gonna see if we get some more news on GTA 6. But moving into the big discussion point that we have for our video game topics is that the first trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows drop is coming out November 15, 2024. This game is taking place in Japan and it's introducing dual protagonists, which I've heard they did before.
Yep.
The protagonist we have is Yasuke, the historical black samurai. And then we have a female Japanese protagonist named Naue. Yasuke would be the samurai representation in the game, while Naue would be more of the shinobi representation in the game. So the reason why we are bringing this up is that, as always, we got some big controversies surrounding Yasuke, our black samurai in the Assassin's Creed game. We have one side that's all for it, and we got the other side that is not all for it. So let's get into it. How'd you feel about it, Ryan?
Let me start by giving my background first. I've played every single Assassin's Creed game except for Rogue, the one that came out with Black Flag when Black Flag was coming on Xbox One. It came on 360. Except for Rogue, I usually avoid the DLCs. I'm also black. I went to an HBCU, predominantly black public school systems, all of that, and I say that for a reason. I don't appreciate Ubisoft throwing in Yasuke as the main character. I don't. I feel like when I saw it, when I hear Assassin's Creed Shadows, Assassin's Creed based in Japan, I'm like, okay, we finna get this badass ninja MC character. Assassin's Creed does a good job at representation, where it's like we get the folks in that nation, usually a secret character, and then we start learning about all the different historical figures in that nation. There'll be like sellers, folks who give quests, etc., etc. They gave us Yasuke and they gave us Naue. Am I still gonna play the game? Yes. But how did I feel about a black main character? I felt like they did that to get black folks to be like, good job, y'all did it, y'all gave us representation, and it ain't do that for me. I felt like it was like meant to be an attention grabber. When folks are now, the arguments that people are having online, oh my gosh, whether or not Yasuke was a retainer or not, my whole thing is there are so many cold samurai in Japanese history, like Nobunaga, the one who Yasuke was the retainer for, who if they used him, that would have been even colder. I don't see why they didn't just make it a Japanese assassin samurai and keep Japanese male and then and keep the Japanese female as the shinobi. It really gave. This game was made 5 years ago during the pandemic when all of those riots and everything else was going on, and they said let's throw in some black representation because black people are going to cheer this on. And I felt like it was tone deaf. And online, if a white person says what I'm saying, they're called racist. Some of the black folks who say it are called coons. I'm furthest from a coon. I love my people, but I felt like this was unnecessary, and I don't feel like Ubisoft should be congratulated for it. And I just didn't appreciate it. I'm gonna play the game regardless. It's probably gonna be fun. But for the folks who are like cheering them on, yeah, let's get that representation. I'm like, Japanese males don't really get that much representation in video games or TV anyway. Yeah, they're always stereotyped as samurai or ninja, but when did we see them? Ghost of Tsushima, Crazy Rich Asians, and the one guy in John Wick Chapter 4 who was a side character. So if y'all want applause for being DEI, we got the diversity, the inclusion, everything else. Y'all kind of failed at that. And two, I don't feel like black folks should just look at this and be like, oh my gosh, now I'm gonna go back and play Assassin's Creed because they got Yasuke in here. It didn't do nothing for me. That's just me though.
When I watched the trailer, so for my background, I don't play Assassin's Creed, but I play enough video games to know that there are certain areas where we lack black representation, or sometimes we have black representation in places that we didn't really need it, or we can feel that you guys put this in here just to put this in here. When I watched the trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadow, and when I turned around and watched the video on the character introductions, I didn't feel like it was pandering. I didn't feel like that they just threw it in there just to throw it in there. Now I understand it from the point where there were expectations and the expectations weren't met 100%. But I think it what the way that I looked at it is that we always talk about black characters in fantasy, or we want something more out of what's given to us when we are introduced into media. Like, we want to see more characters in fantasy, we want to see more characters in this area and that area. And then I saw it as we got it, and I get it that it wasn't the expectation when we hear Assassin's Creed in Japan, but we get the representation, and then we're complaining about it. And then also I'm looking at it from the fact that it's historically accurate. Like, I would see it from the perspective of, if they just decided, and excuse my language, if they just wanted to do niggas in Japan and they just made up this guy, just to put him in there, just to have some black representation, just to say, hey, look, it's a black samurai.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at it from the fact that that if it was the thought that they did the research on Yasuke, the time period that they're portraying the game in is around the same time that they said he historically would have been in Japan. And they said the reason that what they're going to use him for, which is that they're going to use him as a audience vehicle in exploring Japan and learning the customs as an outsider. And the way that resonated with me is that when you buy this game, when your homeboy buys the game, or when anybody buys the game, that's technically what we're going to be. A foreign character playing into this world. And it's just going back to the fact that they did the research and they're forming this story around it, instead of just coming up. I would see it from the perspective of them trying to get, points. If they just made up this random guy who didn't exist, they just want to put a black guy in Japan.
My thing is, they've always done assassins who were just made up and kind of thrown into there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about representation, I can't speak for the folks on the internet. I don't want just a black person thrown into something where, especially if it was a character that was originally white. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply to this assassin, but if they really, and this is where I feel like it's tone deaf, if you wanted to make a black, which is just race, or just a African ancestry ethnic character in an Assassin's Creed video game,
Mm-hmm.
we had Origins, Assassin's Creed Origins, and y'all used an Egyptian character who was visibly black. Y'all did a great job at that. We could have did another one in the Malayan Empire, which was like an old empire from West Africa. There are plenty of African conquerors and wars across all of the different countries in Africa that do not get much visibility for many reasons. We could have just done that. We could have looked up an historical war in Ghana, Morocco, the Senegal, any of them other nations. If we wanted to just make an Assassin's Creed game, we got another black MC, whether they be a female, male, or dual protagonist like this game,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have had no complaints. My complaint for this is that for them to throw it in, and then the reasoning is, oh, well, this is a realistic character who was a retainer for a samurai, and that's why we're throwing him in there. It's like, it's almost as if they prepped to give reasoning for why they put this character there, and I felt like that was unnecessary in the first place.
But I also feel like maybe they had it prepped because they knew the heat that they were going to get.
In my opinion, why do it in the first place? Like, absolutely nobody would have gotten mad at a Japanese male and Japanese female dual protagonist in Assassin's Creed game based in Japan. Nobody would have complained. And despite popular belief, nobody would have gotten mad if it was a female character either, because it's been proven that female characters do great in a lot of video games. And I'm not even I can avoid even using Tomb Raider as the main example. I can use a lot more. So even if y'all just did just Now Way, nobody would have complained. So knowing that heat would have came, and it could have been predicted. I believe this game was in development for 4 or 5 years, and we can go across the timelines to see when that was. Why still go with that? Was it to prove something? Was it to give us an applause and say, ha 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 ha, we got a black guy in Assassin's Creed based in Japan? Because if this was a Japanese male, nobody would have gotten mad. And if y'all wanted to do a Malayan war, a Nigerian war, Moroccan war, old countries that we don't even know the names of because they just weren't in our American history books, y'all could have done that. We could have did Haiti with their independence. We could have did some of the Latin American nations that do have a lot of African ancestry mixed in with the Native American ancestry and the Spaniards and the French who all came out there. We could have done all of that because nobody got mad. We had a Native American mixed dude in Connor from Assassin's Creed 3. And for the folks who argue with all the folks about, well, we had Edward Kenway in Black Flag, and he was in the Caribbean. That was a white guy. A lot of the pirates were of European ancestry. A lot of the pirates. And then we had a great DLC where one of the black guys on that ship, he was freeing the slaves. Nobody got mad at that. That's why this was so overt that y'all just overtly threw a black guy in there. And for this time around, y'all also add some history to it where I'm like, ugh, it gave me an ick.
Well, do you think that nobody got mad, going back to your Caribbean thing, going that the DLC was, it had that the placement was slavery? And
no, because we still got Bayek from Assassin's Creed Origins who was overtly black, and nobody got mad at that. In fact, a lot of people welcomed Assassin's Creed Origins because it was the first one in that Odyssey and Valhalla trilogy to really do that open world aspect. Nobody got mad that we was playing as a black assassin. Nobody. When we just had Mirage and it was that Middle Eastern dude, I don't want to butcher his ethnicity, so I'm not going to say it because I don't want to say the wrong one. But when they had all these Muslim presenting characters who spoke in their Arabic language and everything else, nobody got mad at that. The only thing we complained about was that the story was kind of lackluster. It was. That's all we complained about. Like racism and sexism and all of that, at least from the Assassin's Creed fan base, people may think it's rampant off of this discussion. I promise you it's not, because I've been in it since Assassin's Creed 2 when I was in high school sneaking to play mature rated games. Well, middle school. And that's why this, as a black man, because I'm probably one of the few folks that can say this, I don't want to give Ubisoft their applause. I'm a little cringed. I'm not angry. It's a little cringy when I see all the black folks who are just so gung-ho about it, especially if they ain't been playing any Assassin's Creed games. Because if I was them, I'll be like, this is no different. It's around the same coin of, oh, we're going to throw in a black Superman, when in real life, how about we just use another black superhero, create a new one, create a new black superhero, or use previously established black heroes that ain't got their light, like Static Shock. Let's do an Assassin's Creed in Malaya. Let's do an Assassin's Creed in, give me another African nation, Kenya. Let's do that. They got a lot of history out there. A lot of nations that don't get no visibility.
I know. So like I said, I get like from an expectation thing and how Assassin's Creed has gone. I understand it from that perspective. I would also want to say that maybe we shouldn't be so quick to like judge it, like because we don't know the story yet. And I think what's going to come out of this, what's going to be the real judging factor of what Ubisoft's intention was, is when we actually play the game. Now, if you play the game and you come back and tell me that, they didn't execute this well, this was just a face to sell the game, then we can come back and have this discussion. But I feel like I'm just looking at the way how they how they explain the characters and what the characters are going to be used for, because they said they're going to use Yasuke for more combat stuff and they're going to use Naoe for more stealthy like missions. And then with the story, with them coming from the two different backgrounds, I'm interested to see how they tie that together. And does the story get executed enough to where this big uproar didn't really matter? Or are they not going to execute, and are they going to be hampering on the fact that we have this black samurai?
Is Naoe a historical figure in Japan as a female Asian character?
I don't think so. I think her father is.
That plays a part into my thinking as well. Like it's almost as if Ubisoft prepped to fight for this.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go into more representation. And this is where I feel like companies get representation wrong and they just want to cross off a check on a checklist. Oh, we're going to use a historically semi-accurate black, whether Japanese samurai's retainer, whether he got sworn in as a samurai under Nobunaga or not in Japanese history or not. Regardless, we're going to use him. But the Japanese female character, we already want women representation.
Mm-hmm.
Japanese women definitely are getting the short end of the stick in America, and to a degree, it makes sense because of the population percent diversity that Asians represent in American culture. The biggest group is white, then Hispanic, then Black, Asian, and other.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at statistics and everything, so maybe that makes sense, but Ubisoft didn't emphasize her. She's not a real historical figure. She's not. She's just a made up character. But now we use a realistic fictional character for Yasuke, and they're black, and that just, for me, who, as someone who's taking these business classes, looking at how businesses even look at diversity and DEI,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like they just wanted some brownie points, and I don't believe they deserve it. I get a little upset at the black folks who are giving it to them, and some of the white folks are making racist comments. Don't get me wrong, there are some of those, but I've also seen the very good few ones, and I've been retweeting them, who are making legitimate arguments, but because they're white, they're just going to get labeled as racist, and that's unfair. There are multiple signs pointing that Ubisoft really just did this to get their little brownie points to say, haha, we did it. But where's another African Assassin's Creed? And why didn't this Japanese female character, why didn't we get a historically known female character in Japan?
I can
Shogun just did it,
I
and they did a great job.
I can only see it as, going back to my thing, is that if the intention was to put a black character in the game, I think they had to have something to back it up instead of just saying, N-words in Japan.
I mean, but that's the thing. They wouldn't have had nothing to back up if it was N words in Africa. if it was N words in Kenya, nobody would have said nothing. Nigeria, nobody would have said nothing. I promise you, they didn't say nothing when it was in Egypt. They did not say nothing when it was in Origins. I was there. They did not say when we had a Native American in Assassin's Creed 3. None of them said anything. Nobody, none of the major racist comments, none of that. Because then we see that you're not doing it to just get brownie points and cross off a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually making a good game and use a character who's representative of the nation or location and setting of that video game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was just overtly a business saying, give us that money. And it was made by Ubisoft Montreal. Last I checked, Montreal's in Canada. Countries like Canada, the UK, and a lot of those other nations kind of subscribe to American politics and ideologies, and they kind of play into it,
Mm-hmm.
especially like the racial politics and those conversations. A lot of them are very integrated into those conversations. And it just felt like, here you go. We did that. We're going to be so happy at our Ubisoft Forward coming up. Y'all are going to clap. Y'all are going to like this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, y'all don't deserve it. I don't think y'all deserve it as an Assassin's Creed fan and black man.
I see that in. I think at this point, for me, I would like to see how it's executed. Like I said, I don't play Assassin's Creed, but when I looked at the trailer, I didn't feel the way that you guys felt seeing the trailer. I I think it might have been because I had previous knowledge of like who Yasuke is, and like it, in a sense it fits. And I understand like the expectation of everybody's been waiting for a Japanese based Assassin's Creed game, and then this is what comes out of it. But I think I would want to see everybody's reaction to it when the game actually comes out. And is it that did they take the extra step to care about how this character fits into this story, or is the main focus of the fact that he's black inside of this Japanese-based game?
It depends on how they do it, because there's advantages and disadvantages coming into Assassin's Creed Shadows. The disadvantage is that y'all threw in this black character and it's controversial. Will some more black people buy the game? Will less white people buy the game? Will less or more Japanese people buy the game?
Mm-hmm.
Can't really predict that. But what I can say about gameplay and story, Mirage's story was lackluster. It was not good at all. I don't even remember the main assassin's name.
What about the dual protagonist one?
The one where they did true dual protagonists and they weren't just the same character, but you pick their sex, was Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Also less well received. Wasn't that good. Around the Syndicate Unity games, that was like 5 and 6 if I remember correctly, they were kind of eh. And if I remember correctly, after Syndicate is when they dipped in the open world of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Origins, decently received. Odyssey was received for the scale of the world. And they had, you can make your assassin male or female.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really affect the story though. Valhalla came and Ivor, male or female, didn't really matter. Still a Viking. But Valhalla was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends.
So what would you
Ubisoft is.
So what would you say if you get into the game and they execute it in a way that it didn't really, like, this whole controversy doesn't really matter? If they execute it in a way that shows you that they weren't putting in this black character for brownie points, that they actually took this character, did the research, and cared about the character enough to integrate it into the story that they're telling, how would you feel after that?
If they did that, the mechanics were still good. The world building was still good. And it was a solid game. I would appreciate that I got to play a good Assassin's Creed in Japan. I would still say it was unnecessary to use the one black guy in Japan, because y'all could have just picked another Japanese person, made a good, compelling story, and did it with them, because y'all have done it before.
But my thing is what if they make the way that they're shaping his story, the way, because I guess I'm going back to the fact that we don't know what the real story is, and what I'm saying is what if you get into the game and you find out that there is a specific reason why he is chosen based on the way that the story is going, that goes beyond him being a black man, a black samurai in Japan.
The specific reason could never be good enough to why they couldn't do a Japanese character, because making a compelling story is just making a compelling story. Making a good character is making a good character. And my one example is, if we did an Assassin's Creed in South Africa. South Africa has a lot of European ancestry out there. And if we had an Assassin's Creed where it was a white male, black female, and we just make it just as equivalent, African, native South African female, there would be some issues with that. There would be a lot of them. And even if they made that character really fit, they did a good job. Just the optics of what y'all have been doing with Assassin's Creed games when it came to getting someone who's a reflection of their nationality. Even then, a white male would be a better reflection, because there is a strong European population out there in South Africa or West Africa. Hopefully I'm not confusing the two. I think it's South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Africans out there are also very light-skinned. They're our skin color due to those mixings of genetics.
Mm-hmm.
If they did that, I promise you there'll be just as much issues, if not more. And they know that they couldn't do that. But they do it with this one in Japan. And that's where I feel a little, I don't want to say slighted, but I just don't feel like y'all deserve brownie points. Because we also would have very much celebrated if y'all just had a Japanese male and Japanese female. Y'all could have just did it that way.
Yeah.
And then kill two birds with one stone. Female representation while also having Japanese representation. And just had her as a singular main character.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all could have done that. I promise you nobody would have gotten mad, because nobody's mad now. Because it's Assassin's Creed in Japan. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if y'all did that with Nigeria, y'all did that with South Africa, y'all did that with Kenya, Morocco, let's go down the list of African nations, we all know that would have not have done well on social media. Not at all. And all the publications that are supporting Ubisoft in this decision right now would have been against them. Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, IGN, GameSpot, all of them would have been like, so y'all put a white man, just another white savior again in an African-based Assassin's Creed, when this was the opportunity to shine so much light on black / African nationality, African countries' nationalities representation.
Mm-hmm.
We would have all gotten mad, and can't nobody say we wouldn't. I would not concede to that idea that we wouldn't have gotten mad.
I can see that too. I think I am interested to see how they execute it at this point, because now the characters are out. I'm interested to see how they execute it, because it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, is that we've played games that they introduce a black protagonist or a black character, and they really don't do anything from the story other than the fact that, hey, we have this black character in this game.
Exactly.
So I see where it's like they're putting this in this game because they want brownie points, but I'm also interested to see when we get into the story, when we get into how he's going to play into everything that's going on, is that going to make a difference? Is him being in a foreign country doing this work and alongside the female protagonist, is that going to make more for a compelling story? And maybe once we get to the end of it, maybe the way that they execute it couldn't have been done with a different character.
Well, the funny thing is, they've put themselves in not a lose-lose situation, but it's not much to win.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, let's say the game isn't that good, and let's say the characters aren't that good, because Assassin's Creed has proven that they can do a bad job.
Mm-hmm.
They've proven that they can do good. They've also proven that they can do bad, and they're pretty half and half on that. If it's not a good game, you know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
All of the influx of opinions of, see, this is what y'all get for just trying to throw in a black character just for the hell of it. While they would not have had to deal with that if it was just a Japanese male and Japanese female, because then it would have just been, oh, it's a bad Assassin's Creed game. And if they do a good job, folks are still going to be like, now y'all telling me y'all couldn't do that with a Japanese male or Japanese female?
But I'm just saying, maybe it depends on that. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it depends on the story. That's what I'm saying. It depends. But I agree with you. I agree that if this game flops, this is going to be the blowback. This is going to be the blame. But I'm saying, if the story comes out good, and if the story is crafted in a way that it made sense for Yasuke to be there, then what's going to be the argument?
Then it's like, good job. Y'all still could have done the same thing. For me, my response would have been, y'all still could have wrote a good story with a Japanese male. It's not like y'all had to.
But what I'm
Yasuke could have been
saying,
DLC.
my argument is that they write it in a way that it couldn't be, that it made sense for it to be him. Then what's the argument?
How could they do that? Like, if you look at the history of Yasuke, he was basically a black, I forgot what nation he came from, but Nobunaga, which was the lead samurai, the feudal lord, one of the lords at the time, brought him in and was so surprised of his skin tone because he's never seen it. In fact, there's honestly some cultural similarities to that even in modern day Japan, which we can do our research on.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept him simply because he was interested. Now, if the story is like, oh my gosh, because he's the retainer of Nobunaga, that's why he works with this shinobi character. I'm pretty sure Nobunaga had Japanese male retainers.
Well,
if the story is,
what if the story is that he only knows this one side of it because he was brought in. He only knows this one side of the culture, and then he meets Naue, and then he gets like the full scope of it, of being an outsider.
Even then, that could have been done for Japanese character. And if we're going to look at Yasuke's history and where he came from, that could have been DLC or just Assassin's Creed in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, there's not much of an argument for why we have to. Can never be used. I can't see the argument for where we had to use Yasuke.
Mm-hmm.
I can only see we wanted to, and that we were motivated to do so for insert reasons here. But anything that Yasuke could have done truly could have been a Japanese character. unless they just finna throw racism at it, and it's like, oh, Yasuke walks through a field and all these Japanese people are looking at him, and now you got Naoe who's sneaking on ruse because ha ha ha, they're seeing a black guy and they're all staring at him.
Mhm.
But that might be cringeworthy for anybody playing the game, if we being honest.
Yeah,
It makes sense as a mission,
it makes sense.
but I see more people getting upset.
I would be interested when you play it. I would be interested on your feedback on how they integrate him into the story. Because, like I said,
I'm definitely playing it.
Like I said, I wasn't too mad about it, because the fact that he does exist and the fact that they are expanding his story, and I get where you're coming from, and I get where, you know, the historical accuracy comes from, but for me, and I always say this with anything that we go back and forth, that for my thing, it lies in the execution.
Yeah, I still want a good game.
So yeah. So I think at this point, I think I would like to see everybody's response on the execution of it, because what's done is done. They didn't put the character in the game.
The game is gold.
We can go back and forth about this all day, but I think what's going to give the crown to these two sides of the argument is how they execute his character inside of the game. And if they don't execute it, like we just said, if this flops, then we know where the blowback is going to be. But if it succeeds, then I would like to hear the argument. I would like to hear your argument again on which, if this game comes out well, how Yasuke, how it could have still been the same game if we took him out of it. That's what I would like to hear from you after you play the game. Which could have been the whole game, or could have been like, oh, okay, now I see where these pieces would have lied in. If they switch the characters, it wouldn't have been the same dynamic, or it would have been the same feel. That's what I want to hear when this game comes out.
And a small point that doesn't tie into the race stuff. A lot of people were kind of like Assassin's Creed fans were getting a little what would be the word? Give me like the word for I'm tired of experiencing something and I want to go back to the original. Something of that nature. I can't think of a word, but they were getting a little sick of the open world lack of stealth mechanics in Assassin's Creed. That was an opinion shared by most Assassin's Creed fans, and it was supposed to be given back to them with Mirage. Now, Mirage did do the mechanics right. The story and everything was just trash. Another small issue of this is like, now that we got the samurai and the shinobi, it seems like they're still trying to give us room for both. But it's like, it would have been so much better if y'all actually stuck to a stealth-oriented character in an open world, because that's what Assassin's Creed fans been missing from Assassin's Creed. Hopefully we can utilize the shinobi and it still gives us that stealthy vibe, but that is a little bit of a concern too. But that's outside of the race stuff. That's buried in it.
And I think that would be something that you guys would be able to get from, like, when they come out with the gameplay, the same way that they did with Mirage when they show like the gameplay trailers and stuff like that. I would just say, I just wouldn't be too quick to judge. At this point, I would wait until the execution.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what's really going to decide whether it's because, like, they'll never tell us the true intention. We can always assume. But I think, you know, some evidence that we could get towards what the intention is going to come off the gameplay, and is going to come off how this story is executed.
And to the viewers, please don't be mad at me. I love my people. I love my black people.
They finna call you anti-black. All in the comments.
Call me.
they just gonna start posting raccoons in the comments.
I hate thinking about this because like, we're so consistent with our work ethic. All it takes is one viral video for us to like be up there with bigger channels, and like, it would be something like this where we go viral, and it's like, look at this self-hating, probably got a white parent, like, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why I ended the conversation with how it is, that I would like to see the execution, because we as a community, we cannot deny that there have not been situations where media has thrown in black characters just for the hell of it. We can't deny that.
Especially in the past few years.
But we also can't assume that this is one of those situations. I think we have to wait for the game to come out in full to fully decide that. So once the
Yeah.
game comes out in full, let's come back and have the discussion.
Yeah.
Because
And
then
corp-
the proof is there.
and corporations just learn how to use diversity right. Just learn how to do
I
it.
would
I
I
would
would
love more games with African nations based histories and mythologies. Oh my gosh, there's so much rich culture out there
yeah.
that we do not get to see in popular media.
I would I don't know. They could have something in the works. We'll see. But
That they could.
we're gonna go ahead and shut this down. I did want to get we went over pretty well, but I did want to get this Assassin's Creed discussion in here. So we're gonna go like don't try to knock the cinematography out the ballpark because you already did that. We've already established that the cinematography is fine. The costume designing is fine. The two areas
Fantastic.
that we need you guys to